Hello, this is Daryl Ehrlich with the Billings Gazette, and I am here with the Vietnam Voices series, a project by the Billings Gazette and sponsored by Master Lube. And it is September 18th at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I am joined today by Douglas Kirn, who served in the U.S. Army from 1969 to 1971. He's agreed to come here and share his Vietnam memories and recollections, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for coming today, Douglas. I thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, let's back it up right before 1969. Where are you at? What are you doing before you joined the Army?
I was a junior in high school, and I was going to Poplar, Montana High School, I just wasn't into the school that much or anything. And me and my grandfather used to watch these Vietnam films and stuff on the news every night, and I mean, we couldn't wait for the news to come on so we could watch what was going on over there. And I guess it kind of got to me, so, I figured, well, one day I woke up and said, you know what, I think I'm just going to go join the service and go over there and do what I can.
Yeah. And so you saw what was going on, and so you knew full well what was going on, and you still decided to volunteer.
Yes, sir.
Did it scare you?
A little bit, but I mean, it's you have to pay a price to live in this country.
Yeah. What's the why the Army? Why did you join the Army? Because you. Well,
I didn't want to be a jarhead, man. I wanted to be in the Army. I wanted to, I don't know. I just liked the Army. It was my choice out of the four. So.
Okay, and so then you sign up. And you go, where do you go after that? Because I imagine, did you come to Billings for recruiting and to sign up, or where did you sign up?
No, I went to Wolf Point, Montana. That
okay.
was our county seat, and that's where the Selective Service Board was and everything. And so I signed up there, and talked to a recruiter there, and went ahead and, told him, I said, I want you to make sure. Back then, everybody was getting drafted, it seemed like, that wasn't in high school or college. So I told him, I said, hey, I want you to write on the form that I fill out that I'm volunteering for the draft. And I said, and that's the only way I'm going to sign it. So, we went back and forth for 15 or 20 minutes, and I finally got up and was going to leave, and he said, okay. And so he wrote it down the way I wanted, and then I signed it, and then 30 days later I was on my way to Fort Lewis, Washington for basic.
Wow. And what was basic like? Tell me what you did there, and kind of walk me through that.
Well, it was new.
Yeah.
You go in there and you got all guys, and
right.
and you got a drill sergeant screaming at you like a banshee, and so it's a little scary and kind of hard to get used to. But once you do, it's okay. After it takes a couple weeks to get used to and everything, but. You realize that this is what you got to go through before you can go over there. But personally, I would have rather just went right to Vietnam, but they wouldn't do that for anybody. So, you had to go to basic first and then AIT after. That's advanced infantry training. So,
Yeah, and where did you go for advanced infantry training, and what were you trained?
I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and my MOS was, I can't remember what they called it now, but it was artillery. I went to train for artillery, and I wanted to go to infantry, but you can't pick what they just, when you're drafted or volunteer draft, you got to go where they send you. So that's the reason for that.
Okay. So was artillery training tough, or what did you think of artillery training?
I don't know. It wasn't bad. I mean, it seemed pretty good. I mean, it was wasn't half as tough as infantry training, but it was still tough. I mean, it was hot down there in Oklahoma, and.
Right. Right. So you were trained. Is there a specific thing you were trained to do for artillery?
Well, we trained on 105 howitzers, and in Vietnam they were different. They were called 10 deuces because they had a big wheel in the back, but they were still 105s, But they called them 10 deuces because they had a crank, and they'd crank them, and they could go around by themselves. You had to crank the deal to send them around, but they were kind of a better outfit, quicker, for.
Mm-hmm.
For obvious reasons, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And then what happened after Fort Sill? Then what?
Well, then they told us if we were going to go to Vietnam, or some people were sent to Germany, and Korea and other places. But I knew I was going to Vietnam because that's what I wrote in my thing. And when I first went in for to volunteer for the draft, as I told them, this is what I want to do, and if I can't do that, I don't want to. I had no delusions in my head about being a lifer or staying in forever. I just wanted to go to Vietnam and experience, what it was like to fight in the war and stuff, and then come home and farm and ranch like I was doing before.
So they sent you so that you got your orders for Vietnam.
Yeah, I got my orders for Vietnam and went home for 30 days on leave, and then after that I went to Travis Air Force Base, and from there they sent us, to Vietnam. We stopped in Alaska and then Hawaii and then Guam and then to Vietnam. It's quite a trip on an airplane,
What do you remember about that trip?
Well, I don't know. It was kind of quiet, I guess, and nobody's saying too much. Everybody's wondering the same thing. What's it like,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So when you were home for 30 days, is that hard to be distracted, or what did you do during that 30 days of leave before you left?
I partied hardy.
Right. I think that's what I wanted to hear, because I think that's what a lot of people would want. Yeah. You ran a little bit of, raised a little bit of hell because you knew where you were going.
Yep.
Okay.
I figured, I might not come back, so I might as well, enjoy it and leave something for them to remember me by anyway.
Right. So you're flying over and you get to Vietnam. What's your first impression of Vietnam? You get to where do you fly into?
Well, we flew into, I got to think of it, Benoit. Okay, and when we got off the airplane, I thought I stepped into a outhouse. It smelled like a big shit. Excuse me.
You can say whatever you want.
Yeah,
you can say whatever you want.
I mean, it was stink. I mean, and the minute you stepped off the plane, you look down and you got wet spots under your arm, under both your arms and your back, and I mean, because you just instantly, it's so hot, and humid and everything that you just break out in a sweat. I mean, it's dripping off your chin and.
Right, it's not like Montana.
Oh no, no. It just smells bad, and it's so hot, and you think, oh my God, how am I going to make it through a year of this?
Did you have second thoughts?
No, not really. But I knew, well, this is what you got to get used to it. It's just like they tell you all along. Hey, it's something you got to get used to. I mean, the bugs are even bigger, the mosquitoes and the centipedes. I mean, they had centipedes that long with 1 million legs on them, and I mean, it's just different. The spiders are huge, and
right, everything grows well there.
Everything. I mean, there's monkeys and all kinds of stuff. I mean, you're out in the jungle, the real jungle. You're sleeping on the ground, and in monsoon season it rains continuously, so you're wet all the time, and if you ain't wet from rain, you're wet from sweat,
So enjoy it 1 year of being wet.
Well, I'll tell you what, it wasn't 1 year, but that's their winter time. See, like we snow here, they rain, in 6 months or whatever it is, and that's their winter. But, what we used to do, we used to take, one thing good about it was you could take a grunt shower. You just grab a bar of soap and strip down, and, it's just like standing under a shower because it's, I mean.
Right, it's raining that much.
Raining that much, yeah.
Right.
You just soap down and you're rinsed right off and
keep on going.
Shower, yeah.
Right.
Shower, So.
What? So then, after you land in Benoit, you get off the plane. Then what happens for you?
Well, we went and they took us to this big camp, with a bunch of hooches made out of sandbags and stuff, and you got 4 or 5, 6 beds in each one of them, and you just pick one out and you can find one where the bed's open, and that's your place where you're going to stay, and then they wake you up at 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and then you go to breakfast, and then you go to you go and line up in formation and everything, and then they pick out guys. Oh, you're going to do this. You're going to KP. You're going to go here, you know, and they assign you, you know, to what your work details are and everything, and then after a while they say, well, okay, we're going to train you, and like they took us out. And I remember the first outfit I had guard duty, you know, the first night I was there, and then the next day, you know, I you know, didn't even sleep. I mean, we was, you know, didn't get off till early in the morning, and then I went to breakfast, and then they sent us out, and we had to go to these big platforms. I don't know, they must have been 75 feet, 80 feet in the air, and then we had to rappel off them because I was with the, you know, what they call first cav, and we were. I forget, not airborne, but you know, they send you out in a helicopter, see, and drop you off in the middle of the, you know, in the middle of the jungle, and they call it Charlie Alpha, and you know, and that's where they just drop. They find a big open spot, and first they just saturate it with artillery and B-52s, and then, you know, make sure there's no enemy there or nothing to ambush you, and then after they get done with that, they send us in and drop us off, and then we spend like 30, 40 days out there, and then we come back and we come to these LZs, what they call landing zones, you know, and they got artillery, you know, batteries in there, and they have like the one when I first went there was 102, like I told you, and then they might have 105s or 155s, or they might have 175s, you know, different sizes, because a lot of times they have to fire further out, so they'll use the bigger ones, you know. So, and they're just it's a regular camp. You live in these little hooches, and you gotta build them yourself, you know, and stacks. You get culvert, you know, and lay it down, and then you cover that with sandbags, and then you set up your little, you know, your little hooch with usually ammo boxes you set down, and then you put your air mattress down, you know, and your stuff, and that's what you sleep on, you know.
So not real comfortable is what you're saying.
No, it's not real comfortable, but it's more comfortable than when you're out with our infantry, you know, out in the field, because there you sleep, you know, you go through the jungle all day long, and then right about you can just start to see the sun starting to go down. And Six, that's a captain. Everybody calls him Six, you know. We'll say, all right, let's get ready to bed down, you know, and we'd everybody dig your hole. You got to dig a hole, because if we get mortared or something, you want something to roll in, you know, in to get away from the mortars and flying shrapnel and everything. And then when you get done with that, then you cook yourself up, you know, usually I didn't like the sea rations. I thought they were gross, so we had these other things called lerps, and they were a dehydrated food like spaghetti and chili con carne, you know, and stuff, and you heat up half a canteen cup of water, and you pour it in there and mix it up, and then let it set for about 3 minutes, and it gets just, well, that's dinner, you know, so, but that's what we ate every night.
So
I ate, but anyway.
Yeah, so you go from after landing in Benoit to you're with the artillery. So what's your first day like?
It was an LZ called LZ Jamie, and that's that's when I was with the artillery, and I worked my way up from a loader to a assistant gunner, which is a guy who pulls the lanyard and then it fires the gun, and then I was next up for a gunner, you know, which you sighted in and everything, and I was just training to be one of them. And they asked for volunteers to go out, you know, with the infantry and be an RTO, a radio telephone operator, carry a pack and a radio on my back. I'd have 2 batteries. They were like 25 pounds apiece. 3 days worth of water, 3 days worth of food, and, you know, your ammunition and 2 or 3 grenades, you know, and I'd have maybe 300 rounds of ammunition, too, because you got to make sure you got enough of that, too, you know, and everything. So
that's a heavy pack.
Oh, man, I'd say 160-some pounds and close to 170 pounds, you know. I mean, it was heavy, yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to do that all day?
All day, you know, every day.
And then did you have to go to any kind of training, or was it on-the-job training to be an RTO?
No, after I volunteered, then they sent me to Long Binh, a place called Long Binh, you know, Vietnam, and they had a class there, and I went to that for 2 weeks, you know, and after they taught us, you know, how to call in B-52s and artillery and helicopter gunships, you know, which they call Blue Max. And then after that, you know, the 2 weeks, then they send you back out and you go. I went back to Tain Inn. That was our big rear area, you know. And from there, I stayed there for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, and then my orders come down and they said, get out to the helipad, you know, and tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock after breakfast, you know, and wait there, and then the helicopter's going to come in and they'll tell you which one it is, because they're coming in and out all the time, you know, taking loads of ammo and everything out, you know, and stuff. And the guy said, well, you Private Kirn? Yeah, I am. Well, come on, you know, and I jumped on a helicopter and they flew me out there. And you know, the outfit I was with, I can't think of it. It was Delta Company, I think, and anyway, Delta Company, 1st of the 12th or something. But anyway, you know, they told me, here's your radio and stuff, you know, and gave me everything I needed, and then we got on the helicopters, and like I said, they call them Charlie Alphas, you know, and there's like 9 or 10 of them. Then they saturate the area and bomb the area, you know, and everything to make sure there's no enemy out there waiting for us, you know. And then after that's done, then they fly us in these helicopters, and they just hover, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet off the ground, and you jump off and run for the tree line, you know, and hope that you make it and nobody shoots you or nothing. And then after that, then you all meet up, and then they tell you, well, we're going to head out now. And they'd have one what do you call it? One platoon in front of us. That'd be Alpha platoon. Then they'd have the command post, which is us and the captain and everybody, you know, 6. And then after that, it'd be Bravo platoon, you know, and then Charlie and Delta, you know.
So was being with the infantry what you had hoped it would be? Or what you thought it would be?
I don't know. I wasn't really hoping for anything, but that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be out where the real fighting was, you know, not in a rear area or back in a landing zone where they're shooting. Of course, we got rocketed, and we got mortars and everything every night when I was on the landing zone. I mean, you get that all the time, you know, and people die that way. And we even got attacked. Well, they said the night that I came out there, the night before, they had a couple of platoons of NVA hit them, you know, and they killed like 300 of them, you know, around the LZ. And luckily, that was the day before I went out, but so I wasn't there then. But while I was there, we got hit a couple times like that, but it wasn't that big. You know.
Is this the NVA or is this the Viet Cong hitting you?
Both really.
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
But I mean, the NVA is. See, you could tell them apart because the NVA is dressed like us. They're green, you know, uniforms.
Right. They look like military.
Yeah, military, right. And the Viet Cong, they're black pajamas usually, you know, and well, actually, they dress in different stuff too, but you know, most of them are black pajamas, little pointy hats, you know, and stuff like that. So you can pretty much tell them too. But they're really something, you know. Them guys, they don't fight like we do. I mean, you know, they're underground. You know what I mean? And they'll peek their head up and pick off 2 or 3 of us, and then down underground again. And you don't even know where the firings come from most of the time. You know?
Wow, is that a little unnerving? Because I mean, it's one thing to know where to shoot, but how do you know where to shoot when you can't even see?
Yeah, well, you know, and one other thing too, I was going to mention is they get medals for killing officers and for killing RTOs. See, I never knew this until after I went to the school and went out there and everything, but they said your life expectancy, Kirn, is 8 seconds from the time you get off that helicopter. Because, see, you got that big whip aerial, you know, on your radio on your pack, and they're going for you, and they get medals for knocking out an RTO or knocking out an officer, you know, so.
Right, and they wanted that because that would cut off your communication.
Yeah, that's. And they can always, you know, like the officers could hide, see, because everybody would take your rank off, and you just have a uniform, so everybody looked the same, you know.
Right.
And you never saluted or nothing like that. You know, that was out. Everybody was, you know, treated the same.
Right.
Because you didn't want, you know, you don't want them to know anything.
Know who the officer is.
But the RTOs, they don't have no way to hide because we got that big whip aerial, and you know, walking around.
Was there any way to disguise yourself, or were you just...
No, you can't, because you got that radio, you know, and you could pick that out from the rest of them, you know.
Right.
And they're smart enough to know, hey, that's communication there, you know.
Yeah.
Because see, they'd have me. I was artillery attached to them, right, to call in Blue Max, the helicopter gunships, and B-52s, and all different sizes of artillery, you know. And anyway, like the other guy, you know, the other people, the other guys, they don't have any, they don't call in any of that stuff. We do, but each platoon had a radio man, so they carried a radio too, right?
Right.
And they carried about the same amount as I did, you know. I mean, 2 batteries extra. We got logged every 3 days, see, and every third day they'd come out and give you water, food, cigarettes, you know,
right,
and you know, whatever, you know, your mail.
Yeah.
Clean clothes, you know, clean clothes.
Right, but you'd be out there for a while before you'd ever get to go back to the rear.
Yeah, like I said, we'd be out there for anywhere from 30 to 60 days, and then they'd rotate us, and then they'd send, like I said, I was with Delta Company, okay? And then say the next one would be Alpha Company, and we would pull guard duty in the rear, at Tain or wherever, you know, or on some fire base, you know, like LZ Jamie, where I was telling you. And then while we were doing that, we'd be there for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, you know, whatever. And then they rotated. See, you got Alpha Company, Bravo Company, Charlie Company, and Delta Company. And Echo Company is always mortars. Okay, they stay right on the LZ, and they're a mortar outfit. That's what their job is to send mortars out, you know, and that's all they do. But the rest of us, you know, we got to rotate and pull guard duty in the area, and then when the 30 days or 60 days is up, we go out, you know, and we go out and spend, you know, anywhere, like I said, from 30 to 60 days, and then we rotate again, you know, so.
So are you in the jungle when you're out on,
Yep.
What's that like? Give me an idea of what your impression of the jungle was like.
Well, it's hot, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And you, like I said, you got great big monster bugs and snakes, and I mean, you know, it's just kind of a real bad situation.
Right.
You know? I mean, you're getting ate up by bugs all the time, and you know, at night they had this mosquito spray, and I don't know what it was, but boy, it was something else, you know. What you do see is you dig your hole. Okay, you set your air mattress down, you know, which really your air mattress only lasts about a week, and then it'd get a hole in it. So all it was a plastic thing down there, you know, and you get your poncho, you know, and your poncho liner, wrap up in your poncho liner, and lay your poncho, a big rubber thing, you know, with a hole in it. You put on, you know, poncho, and then you put that on top. Or if it's raining during the rainy season, you make a little pup tent out of it, you know, and that you get under that to get out away from the rain, you know, and try to stay a little bit dry anyway. But, you know, I mean, you still, what you do is you take that mosquito spray, it's like in a regular green, instead of, you know, how they got different black flag, you know,
right.
stuff. Well, instead of them, they come in the same kind of thing, but they're green, they're OD green, you know, and you just spray all the way around where you was. And nothing, I'm telling you, not a snake, not nothing would come in that circle where you sprayed it. I don't know what it was, you know.
But it was powerful.
It could have been Agent Orange, you know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I know one thing, it was the best I ever seen, because nothing would come in there. You didn't have to worry about no snake crawling in there and getting you, you know, at night we were resting, you know. So.
Right. Was it hard to sleep? Or
not really, because you're so tired, you know.
Yeah, because you have to dig your own bed.
Yeah, you know. So
you're not.
Some guys, you know, like I say, you know, we're all different, right? So,
right.
But me, it wasn't, because man, I was carrying a lot of weight. So all of us RTOs were, you know. And when it come time, man, I mean, I'd dig my hole, and I'd eat, you know, and man, I'm. You know, I'd lay down, and it wasn't 10 minutes. I'd be sound asleep. But you know, some other guys might be real worried. You know, people are different, and some guys might have worried more or this or that. I don't know. Me, I didn't. I was just plain tired. I want to go to sleep, man, you know.
Right, yeah, because you've been carrying a lot of weight. So what was it like calling in artillery or calling in the guns? That must have been kind of an exhilarating or exciting part of the job. If you had to call in some firepower. Was that? Did you communicate? Who did you communicate with, and would?
Well, if we got hit, usually the forward observer, he's a lieutenant, he would grab the phone and do that, But if we were just calling it in or whatever, like Delta Tangos, that's defensive tactics, and we call like set a grid north, say within 25 meters of where we set up, and then we'd say, okay, that's Delta Tango Alpha, Delta Tango Charlie, Delta Tango, and it'd just go all the way around us. So if we got hit, see, all we had to do, if we were getting hit, say from this side over here, from the east side, Delta Tango Delta, and we just, boom, get right on the phone and start walking them in as close as we could, if that's where we were getting hit, you know what I mean? And then we could also get the helicopter gunships would come, and then we'd throw out smoke, and all that stuff, and we could, we could direct them that way, see? So, no, it was kind of really something at first, but after a while you get used to it, it's just a...
Yeah. Well, when you're back at the base, you're even taking mortars or RPGs when you're at the base in the rear by the guns.
More mortars and rockets.
Okay.
Yeah, RPGs are what they use on us out when we're out in the field.
Okay.
They'll, like I said, they'll pop their head out from a hole, and boom, an RPG, and knock out 4 or 5, 6 guys. The biggest one that I ever had when I was out there was I got a Bronze Star for this. Okay. This other RTO, when I went out there, he taught me everything I needed to know. Right.
Right.
He was with the infantry. He was the infantry RTO.
Right.
And anyway, his name was Mike Irish. And he was from California. But anyway, he taught me everything I needed to know about it and stuff. And we walked in, and we're getting 6, the captain said, okay, let's set up. So we started to get ready to set up, and the next thing I know, boy, they just opened up automatic weapons, right? And guys were just dropping and screaming and all this, and anyway, he got hit. It hit him right through his radio, and he was laying there right out in where the bullets were all flying and stuff, because, see, they were after us, the command posts. They were waiting for us,
So this was an ambush.
They let the infantry guys walk in and go through, and they didn't, they that's the way they were. See, they knew what they were doing, them guys. Well, they've been fighting all their lives, I mean, shit, before we came there, fighting the French, and before the French, the Japanese, and, but anyway, they hit us when we walked in, and 13 guys, and out of the 13, my friend Mike Irish, he got wounded, and what we did was, after it was all over, we called in the medevacs, and the medevacs come, and we took the dead ones and we threw them on a helicopter first, and then we took the wounded ones and put them on top, on top of them. See, so
that's pretty tough.
Yeah.
So when you're just so I want to just kind of get this, because I think it's important for people to understand. You're just walking along. You're in the jungle and you're walking along, and then just another day, another day in the jungle here in Vietnam, and all hell breaks loose. Is that kind of how all of a sudden?
Because it isn't, it ain't like that happens every day. We might go 2-3 months, and not get much but mortar fire or this or that, they'll drop a few mortars in on us or something, or sniper will take a few shots and maybe wound a couple guys or something, maybe not,
Right.
And then it's over, but because they don't like to attack and go, head on with us, because they didn't have no chance, see.
Right, but it's the surprise that they want.
Yeah, they want the surprise. They want the ambush. See, that's what an ambush. We set up our ambushes too,
Did you ever get them in an ambush?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
We killed a lot of them that way. I mean,
right.
What you do see is there's a couple times, and that's kind of scary, where they took me and like 10 other guys, and they say, okay, fall out right here, and then they'd go on up. The rest of the company would go on up maybe a click or two, and a mile or two, and then they'd set up and then leave us out there, see, and we'd dig our holes and everything. You got to be real quiet, because if they know you're out there, they're they're going to come and get you, you know. So anyway, but that's what we called an ambush. See, we'd wait out there, you know, and they always have like me, or we had me carrying the radio, and then they had a sergeant that was from the artillery too, you know, but he was an RTO too. He'd call in artillery and stuff too. And like he would borrow my radio, or else he'd borrow a radio from the infantry and go out with them, you know, and so he could call in, you know, gunships or B-52s or whatever. And then they had the captain, or not the captain, but he was a first lieutenant. The captain is the one that's in charge of everybody. He's infantry, you know.
Okay.
They called him Six. And
right. Did you? So when they they would leave you out, and then they'd go up the hill a little ways, or go up a little ways to try to
make them
bait
think
them
that, you know, that we're still with them, and we would just kind of fall out one at a time, and then fall into the, you know, into the bushes and everything, and then meet up, you know, and we'd find our own little spot and dig our holes, and, you know, and set up for the night, and just sit there quietly, and it's an ambush, you know.
Right.
You don't sleep, you stay awake all night.
Is it hard staying awake all night?
Yeah, you know.
Because you're tired.
We're tired, but, you know, you got one thing in the back of your mind. If they come along, you know, and you're asleep and they stumble over you, you're dead. So you got to stay awake, you know, so you're kind of on edge all night.
Right.
Thinking you want to get them before they get you, you know.
Right.
You know, and that's what they do. They move around at night and everything. And
so
any other time they're underground, see. They stay underground where they're hid.
Right. Did you... at night, how did you know they were coming? Because I'm guessing it's pretty dark in the jungle. How would you?
Well, it is, but see, we'd have trip flares set out.
Okay.
You know, and you got these trip flares, and if they got a little line going maybe from here to the door, and if they come along and they hit that trip flare, poof, it'll come up, but they won't know where we are, but we know where the trip flares are, so we know that they got to be in that area for that trip flare, unless some kind of animal, whatever, a monkey or something, come along and set it off.
Does that ever happen?
Well, I imagine it did, but we always think the way that, oh, it's one of them,
Right? Yeah, not a monkey.
You don't want to you ain't got no second chance,
Yeah, and so you do that. Then what was guard duty like?
Oh, it was just usually, sitting around and, well, it depends. Out there, you have to be real quiet, and you get, like me, I'd had a radio, and I had the radio and, your telephone thing, and you'd call every 15 minutes and say, let's see, platoon A, or alpha platoon. Is everything okay? And you're just whispering, and then and you talked as little as possible. You just keyed your thing, and go, and that see, that's how, you didn't want to talk at night because voices carry a long way, see,
Right.
You just say, let's see, B platoon, and then you'd go, and then they'd go back, and okay, he's awake, See, we do that to make sure they're awake and everything's all right, and that's how you communicated. You didn't say, very little words.
Wow. Did you? So you could be some missions or some that you're doing. You're not getting any firefight, and others you engage the enemy. Then.
Yeah.
And you just never knew.
You never knew, when it will happen.
Right.
They might watch you for weeks, weeks and weeks, and then all of a sudden, they'll figure out a place where it's best for them, and that's when they'll hit you, But
was it a spooky feeling to know that someone may be watching you, or did you?
Well, like me, I can't speak for anybody else.
Sure.
I always got the feeling somebody was watching me. Not always, but when it would happen, right?
Yeah.
Like certain days, I go, damn, I'd be looking around like this, in the trees and everything. And I just had a feeling, hey, there's eyes on me. And I know there is, But you can't see them because the jungle is like right here, And you can't see that, past your hand, the length of your arms.
And the jungle is there a lot of light? Is there no light? I mean,
some places it's just as black as midnight, and other places, where it ain't so thick, there's the sun coming through or whatever, But like in monsoon season, there wasn't much sun anyway, so it was pretty dark,
Yeah.
But
What about, so you're a Montana boy. You're a long way from the farm. What do you miss about Montana when you're over there?
Everything.
When you got nothing, there's everything to miss, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything in particular?
It's so different, you
Right.
know. I mean, it's just so different. And like one time, I went on R&R, you know, and I went to Bangkok, Thailand, you know, for 7 days or whatever. And when I come back, this friend of mine, he wanted to go to Saigon, right? And it's Ho Chi Minh City now, you know,
Yeah.
but back then it was Saigon. And I said, well, you know, we're not supposed to go there. The first air cav was banned. I mean, if they catch us down there, you know, they're going to arrest us. But we didn't have no emblems on our uniforms, just green, you know, so it's hard for them to tell, you know. And
Why are you banned from that area?
well, I guess we raised too much hell or something. I don't know, you know.
I can't imagine that.
They thought we were too crazy, I guess, you know. I
Right.
don't know. But, you know, most of us, like the first air cav, I mean, we were right out there, you know, out doing what you're supposed to be doing, you know. And a lot of these other outfits, they didn't do nothing, so they were just, you know, that was their life. I mean, you know, when you're in the rear area, which they needed all kinds of guys, right, cooks and this and that, you know, and guys working on the helipad, sending out artillery, and you got to have guys that unbox that artillery and stack it, you know, and then they put it on these big nets, and those big helicopters come down. They call them Chinooks, you know, and then they hook them up to that, and they take them, bring them out to the firing base, you know, like I was on LZ Jamie, you know, when I first told you, and they'll be sending out loads of ammo all the time, all day long, you know, because you use it all up at night, you know, so.
Right.
Because somewhere in that country there's a firefight going on, you know, all the time, so.
Right. Did you? What kind of communication are you having from home? Can you even write, or are you out in the jungle? Is all communication?
Like I said, every 3 days they would log us, you know,
Yep.
food and water and everything. And they bring
Right.
our mail out too. So, you know, I got letters from my girlfriend and, you know, from my mom and dad and my grandparents and, you know, friends.
Did you have any time to write back?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know, because like I said, a lot of times we might go for half a day, and then six will say, okay, we're going to set up here and we're going to set up an ambush, you know. And so we'd all, you know, get ready and dig our holes so we wouldn't have to do it later. And then everybody's quiet, you know. And most of the time, like a lot of times, I'd sleep, you know. If I didn't have to listen to the radio or do anything like that, I would just go to sleep, you know. And
Right.
it's easier to pass the time that way. But if I couldn't sleep or, you know, I wanted to, I'd just get out my stuff and write a letter, you know.
Yeah. What did you ever think you might not return to Montana?
Oh yeah. You know, I always thought, hey, because you see guys get killed, you know, all the time. I mean, you know.
How do you go on with you might have just been talking to one guy just a bit ago, and now he's gone. That must be pretty tough to deal with.
Well, it was just like when I told you when I got that Bronze Star for, you know,
Yep.
see, me and a medic went out and grabbed him and pulled him out, you know, pulled him down into a little hole, like, so that the bullets were just flying all over, you know. I mean, we were in a firefight, man, a bad one, you know. And anyway, you know, you just don't know, you know. You just don't know. You have one thing in your mind all the time that, hey, tomorrow could be the day, because, you know, just like there was a couple of them guys, them 13 that, you know, them 10 that died that day or whatever. There was 3 of them that, you know, counting my buddy and 2 other guys that lived. But, I mean, one guy got shot in the eye, man, you know, and he was dead before he hit the ground. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, you got guys get shot in the heart or whatever, you know, you get shot and you die immediately, or sometimes you roll around screaming. And, you know, I mean, nothing hurts you worse than to see some guy screaming for his mother, you know, and he's dying. You know he's dying. So
Yeah.
he knows he's dying, you know, so.
And you're out in the middle of and you can't get to him, and that, yeah. Or
Well,
even
not only that, you're sitting there watching it too, you know.
Yeah, you're powerless.
I mean, yeah, you can't do nothing. You're waiting. You're sitting and calling, hey, get that medevac out here now. God damn it, man, we got guys laying here dying, bleeding to death, you know. And I mean, you get all excited, but you know it's not their fault. They're trying to get there as quick as they can, you know. But
right.
But these guys are guys you spend every day with, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Is it hard when replacements come to welcome them in, or are you just glad to have, because you're getting replacements?
Cherries. I mean,
Yeah.
they called me that too when I first got there, but they're cherries, you know.
Yeah.
And usually nobody has any respect for them because they don't know nothing, you know.
Right.
And so, you know, that's just the way it was.
And you had to learn. So, what's the best advice that with that radio
until
operator?
They prove themselves, you know. They join in with the rest of us, and then we find out what kind of man they are. Because you never know, you might get some dud out there that's screwing up all the time and making noise, and you know. Like I remember we got hit one time, and they sent out 3 new guys, right? And when the guy was. They put him on guard duty that night, and it was about, I don't know, maybe 10 o'clock at night. Trip flare goes off. Well, the first thing they teach you is don't fire your gun at it. When you fire your gun, you know, your weapon at it, you're giving your position away, and therefore your other guys that are all around could be killed, you know. So what you do is you set off your claymore mines. You got claymore mines, and they click 3 times, and then they blow up, and 8,000 little BBs are flying through the air, and that's what you do. That way they can't tell where the firing's coming from, see, because you got the claymore mines. Well, this idiot fired, right? And so they started firing back, and you know, there was 3 or 4 guys that were killed, and he was killed too, but you know, maybe it's better that he was, because he would have caught hell afterward. Everybody would have been on his ass, you know?
Right. Right.
Because obviously he didn't, when he was going to training, it didn't sink in what he was supposed to do. Because I'm sure the guys that he was in the hole with in there, you know, where he was pulling the guard duty, probably told him too, you know, hey, whatever you do, don't fire, you know. Because if you fire, you're going to give this position away, and we might all end up dead. They'll shoot an RPG or something in there and kill everybody, you know. So,
right.
I mean, you had to use your head. You had to think quick too, you know. You
yeah.
Just you know, get emotional, and you could cost lives.
Was it hard? I mean, when you had to return fire, and when you're doing that, are you angry, or are you what's going through your head when you have to return fire? What are you thinking about? What do you?
Well, I don't know. I'm just thinking of trying to save my life.
Yeah.
My buddies around me, you know. Yeah. But no, I never really got angry. I mean, I hated them bastards, you know, because of the guys that I seen die, and we're at war, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, but I always respected them. See, I don't know. Maybe that's one of the things about guys who came back, you know, and didn't get screwed up that much. You know what I mean? You respected them. You didn't, because you know, in every war you got guys that just kill. I mean, they just kill women, children. It don't matter anything. You know, they're just there to kill.
They're killers.
And yeah. And that's on both sides. I mean, they had guys, I'm sure, that were that way, and we did too. You know, but. I witnessed something like that, you know, but I don't want to say too much about it, because I'm not a rat, you know. So, but I mean that, you know, that was, I had like 2 months left in country, and I witnessed where a guy was trying to give up, and they just wasted him, you know. And I mean, out of all the stuff that happened to me, and I had a lot of stuff happen to me, I remember that the most.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Let's talk about. When you're over there and you're fighting, are the guys you're fighting with, are you close to? Are you not? Do you get close to those guys if you're in the jungle every day?
Sometimes, you know, it just depends. And, you know, like I said, when I first got there and I was on that LZ Jamie, you know, and I was with the artillery, we got hit a couple nights, or 3-4 nights after I was there, and you could see them running. I mean, you could, you know, the guy, they'd set off a trip flare and take off running, and the infantry that was guarding us around, they were in the front, and then the guns are in the back, you know, further away. And we'd be on the guns, and we'd be, you know, like I was a loader then, and you know, that's when I first got there, and so you have to start at the bottom, right? So I was a loader, and I was loading into and they'd be, you know, I'd be boom, boom, boom. I mean, you know, geez, them guns are going all the time. I mean, the next day, you spend the whole day breaking out ammo and getting it ready for the next night, you know. And I mean, you don't sleep at all that whole day. That night, you're firing your gun all night. You eat breakfast, and then they start sending in the ammo again. You break it out of the ammo boxes and stack it, you know, and get it ready for if you get hit that night. So,
wow. And
you could see them, you know. I mean, you could see them, but you might even think that when you shot at them, you might have hit one. But when I first got there in LZ Jamie, and I was a loader and stuff, they put me in charge of the M60 machine gun, right? So I had to clean it and get it ready, and I always had like you know, they come in 300 round bandoliers, like, you know, and I'd have 3 or 4 of them, you know, ready. So. Yeah.
Right.
we get overrun, right? So if they get through the infantry, then they're going to be coming for us. See, they want us. They're throwing satchel charges in on them guns and blowing them up. See, and that's
Did you have a couple of times where they overran?
No, but like I said, the night before I got there, I guess they did. They killed, they ruined, screwed up some guns real bad and killed not quite a few, but I heard there was 8 or 10 of them that were killed, where they threw a satchel charge in and blew them up. And I was also there one day when they called in a fire mission, and we're all sitting around after dinner. This is like 6, 7 o'clock in the evening before I went out with the infantry, and we're writing letters and everything, and then all of a sudden, Malawi, and the gun right next to us, maybe, I don't know, 30, 40 feet or whatever, yards or whatever away, 175 shot out from another battery, LZ Ike, and somehow they screwed up with the coordinates and they ended up hitting right in the middle of that gun. And they killed a guy, man. I mean, geez, it blew him right in half, I mean, and the concussion of it, man, I went flying through the air and I was laying on the ground. I thought I was shot, and here I was just knocked out of wind, from the blast from the...
Right, and that was friendly fire.
Friendly fire, yeah. That's what I'm saying. So they have accidents like that happen all the time, who knows? Maybe the guy was smoking a joint or got high or whatever, drunk or you don't know. Or he might have been called the wrong coordinates and put them in, and that's what happened. I don't know, but I know one thing: one guy died, and about 3 were in, had to be medevaced out. They weren't dead, but
they were
probably wish they were. I mean.
Yeah. So that's some kind of, so you can say that you felt the concussion. You felt what happens when one of those hits. And
you got a blast concussion, right? And it just picked my whole body up and threw me against a parapet wall, where the ammo is, and I slammed into that, and then next thing I know, I'm laying on the ground and I'm gasping, knocked me out of wind, right? And I thought I was hit, I'm laying there and I'm going, and pretty soon, I started to get my air back and looking around, and I got up and checked myself, and I ain't got no holes or nothing, so I said, shit, man, it's just the impact. I don't know, it's a miracle I never got any shrapnel or something from it,
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know, I had a couple times that stuff like that happened to me where I couldn't explain why or what. It just, happened.
Is there a happiest or is there a best memory from Vietnam for you?
Oh, I don't know. Probably when we went on R&R, me and a couple buddies, and, we went to Bangkok, like I said, and we had a good time. Got drunk, and each of us had a woman, from Bangkok, I mean, they're whores, but I mean, they're
Right.
They're trying to make a living, and I'd rather, I was engaged, and I wanted to meet my my wife. I ended up marrying her. My girl. I'd been going with her since she was 15. At high school and stuff, and we planned on getting married when I got back, but I waited 11 months, and you had to wait 11 months to go to Hawaii, right?
Right.
So anyway. About 2 weeks before my 11 months, I put in for Hawaii. That's where I wanted to go. And then I wrote a letter to her, and she wrote a letter back, and she decided that she didn't want to go. Oh, what people might think, what are they going to think? And I said, oh, piss on them what they think,
Right.
And she didn't want to, so, I wasn't going to press it any further. I just let it go. So I changed, at the last minute and went to Bangkok. I could have went to Australia, too. I had my choice. I waited 11 months. So
wow, 11 months in country before.
Yeah, before I took my R&R.
Wow. Is it hard coming back from R&R?
Yeah. You're all hungover.
And then you got to go back to fighting.
Go back to what you're doing, yeah. And the next thing you know, well, I don't know if you're a drinking man or not. But,
I am.
You know how you sweat and everything after the next day?
Yeah.
Oh, man, in Vietnam, it's twice as bad,
Yeah, because your
uniform and everything is plumb wet. You look like somebody threw a bucket of water.
And then you have to drink bad water, I've heard.
Oh, well, I don't know. We had water shipped in and stuff, and, I mean, I never did drink out of out of the rivers, or they had a lot of bomb craters, right? And during monsoon season, them things would fill plumb full. I mean, there was a lot of times when it was hot, and after monsoon, let up and started getting better and hotter, and guys would just dive in. It was like diving in a swimming pool, man. You swim around in there and bomb craters, and then crawl out, And because a lot of times we never had nothing to do, so we're waiting maybe for the helicopters to come and pick us up and drop us off somewhere else, So,
right.
You don't have nothing to do, and 6 says it's okay, so,
Right. Did you? What was a bad day in Vietnam? What's a bad day for you?
When you after a fight, and guys are dead, and nobody's saying too much, and
So after that,
hurting,
Yeah. After that, when that happens, do you keep on? After guys are hit and injured, do you go back, or do you just keep on mission? What do you do afterwards? I mean,
you just go on. You just go on and whatever. 6 is the one. See, they get a hold of him, and he, like I said, they log us every 3 days. And usually they'll send out a colonel or sometimes a general, or maybe a colonel and a general. And he'll come out, and 6, the captain, will go with them. And they'll sit and talk, and they don't tell us nothing, right?
Right.
They tell it to 6, and then 6 writes it down on his map, and he knows everything what he's got to do, and if we're gonna be flown out to another place or whatever, he knows, and we just do what he says, So
right. So you never quite knew from day to day what the next.
No, you just did what you were told, and that was it.
Yeah, yeah. When you're if you're a radio operator, are you having to return fire, or do you take cover, or what happens? Because you're carrying, your job's communication, but do you also have to fight your way out of this stuff too? Or?
Well, if they start overrunning you, and they start killing everybody around, you better grab your gun and start doing something. But it never got that bad, as far as when I was there, But what I would be doing, I would be so busy calling in helicopter gunships or B-52s or whatever, that these other guys are all in the midst of firing and shooting and all this, and I'm doing a different job. See, I'm calling in what I got to do,
Is it? I've heard it described as when there's a fire, when there's firefight, or when there's fighting going on, it's kind of complete chaos. Is that? And it's been, some of that in movies. It looks like kind of chaos. Is it, or is it more?
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I'm concentrating, doing my job and calling in. And what's happening with these guys, I'm not paying no attention to that. I'm trying to do, what I'm trying to do. You know what I mean? I'm trying to, like, if I'm in the midst of directing a helicopter gunship or something, that's what I'm doing. I'm not paying attention to these other guys in the firefight they're doing. You're just doing your job.
Are you communicating with the captain, or who are you doing?
No, we're talking, like, if I'm doing a helicopter gunship, I'm talking to the pilots of the gunship, and I'm telling them, well, lay it down again, or drop 25, which 25 yards, or add 25, come in closer, and that's. You just have you have your own what.
You have your own world.
Yeah, words and stuff, and they know what you're talking about, and you know what they're talking about. But if you didn't do that job, it's alien to you, So,
yeah. What's the best piece of advice that other radio operator gave to you? You said there was the one who taught you everything. He taught you really what you needed to know.
He just told me that sometimes there'll be bullets flying all over, or mortars or whatever. Don't panic, whatever you do, don't panic. Just stick doing your job, and because these guys are counting on you.
Right. Was it hard? Was it hard to just do your job with bullets flying?
Well, at first, but then afterward, you get used to it, and you say, "Hey, man, my job is my job," and that's what I got to do. But just like that, one day we were there and we got hit. Well, this is when them guys got killed, and the guy fired at him and gave away his position. Mm-hmm. Well, it just turned out that there was I don't know, a battalion or something. that was just out of sight from us, and that's what they were out there wandering around, set off a trip flare, and that guy fired at them, and that's how they found out where we were. Well, the next day, this was at night now. We're 10, 11 o'clock at night, and it's pitch black, So we waited, and they fought. We fought, shooting at each other and calling in gunships and everything, And then the next day, we fell back about, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 clicks. And then we dug in. Captain Six said, "Dig in, man." And so we dug our holes, and jumped in them. And then they called in the B-52s, right? And they dropped napalm and all that shit, And I remember I was sitting in that hole, and man, I was thinking, "Holy smokes!" And it was like an earthquake, man. I mean, the sides, as you're in that hole like this and down low, the sides were just shaking. You could see the dirt from where you dug your hole, and it was just shaking and falling in on you and everything. And I think I was probably really scared at that time,
right?
Because I thought, Jesus Christ, these guys! I thought it was too close. I mean,
right.
Because they're dropping 500 and 1,000-pound bombs, them B-52s,
Right.
And man,
and you could feel it.
That was scary. Yeah. Oh yeah. You just shaking the whole ground and everything around you.
Yeah. Those. So when did you get your orders to when did you finally get to leave Vietnam, and what was that like?
Oh, I don't know. It's like being born again. Because all I'm thinking about is, hey, I'm going home. I'm going to see my girlfriend,
right,
and my people, and it's just like Christmas,
right,
or your birthday or something special, hey, man, I'm going back to the world, the hell with this place, man. And
right. So you got back to the real world. How was that? Where did you? Did you land back in California, or did you? Where did you?
God, we went to Travis Air Force Base, and then from there, we get off, and then we spent I don't know, 12 hours or something in there. They run us through doctors and taking blood, and this and that and everything, and then they even fit you with a new. Uniform. I'm talking about your dress uniform, and all that and everything. It's all put to size because, I mean, you lose 50, 60 pounds when you go over there, I mean,
yeah.
just from sweating,
Yeah.
But, anyway.
It's a hard way to lose it.
Oh, yeah. But anyway, then you get your new uniform and everything, and they give you your orders, you got a little envelope, manila envelope, and then they say, okay, and they send a bus over or whatever and send you to the airport, and you go to the airport and you try to get the first plane out that you can to where you're going, and I mean, guys, I knew guys when I was over there that were from New York and Boston and, stuff like that. They would go to the East Coast, man.
Yeah.
We went to the West Coast because that was closest to where we were, where we were going, see. And I like I said, I wanted to ETS out of there and be done with it. I had no ambition of being in the service for 20 years or nothing like that. I just wanted to go home and farm and ranch, And so I tried to volunteer for another 60 days, and they said, well, it's too late. But they said, if you'll sign up for 3 more years, we'll let you stay another year. I said, hey, man, you guys are talking, you're talking dead here. I said, I just wanted 60 more days so I can ETS,
Right.
See, I wasn't no tin soldier. I didn't want to be,
Right.
All I wanted to do was go to Vietnam and experience it, and then get out, man. And I didn't look forward to going to no base and doing 6 months. I did it, but I didn't like it, man.
Right.
They stuck me in an arms room when I was in Fort Sill the last 6 months, and it was smaller than this area here, and they had M60 machine guns and .45 caliber, handguns and M16s and every kind of weapon that you could think of. Well, it just turned out, being a farm and ranch kid, I knew a lot about guns, right? And I could tear any gun down and put it back together, no problem. So somehow they found that out, and that's where they put me. And so these are for trainees, right? They get people coming in, trainees, and they check out, well, I need an M60 or I need a M79 grenade launcher, or a 50 caliber or 30 caliber or whatever, and I'd give it to them, and then they'd bring it back, and I'd have to look at it, and open up the open up everything, and hey, this is dirty, go back, and I mean, them trainees, they're always trying to pull something over and hand it in, and then if I take anything back like that, then I got to tear it down and clean it and everything and put it back, So I almost got in fights with them guys over that, I mean, I'd say, I ain't taking this weapon. Well, I'll kick your ass. And I said, hey, man, I'll meet you when I get off work, and we'll settle it,
Right.
I'm not, I don't care. I mean, these guys, the outfit I was with, the trainees, they were shake and bakes, what you call sergeants. They go to 6 more weeks or whatever, and then they come out as a buck sergeant, 3-striper.
Right.
And a lot of them thought they were sergeants already, and since I wasn't a sergeant, they were going to try to pull rank on me or whatever, and that didn't work with me, I'd sooner step out and slug it out with them, and then find out, that's just the way I am.
Right.
I'm not going to pull nobody's weight, man, I got trouble enough pulling my own.
Yeah. Was Vietnam a good experience?
Yeah, I wouldn't trade it. I'd do it again, in fact, too.
Really? Why?
Just because, I don't know, I love this country, and if we need people to go out there and fight and die, then hey, you're supposed to step up.
Yep. Was it hard to get back to regular life after Oklahoma?
Yeah.
What was tough about it?
Dreams. You'd have dreams, and and like I said, that guy I saw get murdered, he was trying to give up, right? This guy was going to give up. I could tell by the way his voice cracked, and he had half his leg was blown off at his right leg, at his right knee. And you could tell by the way he was screaming and stuff that he was yelling "Chu Hoi," and he had these slips that they'd drop from B-52s and stuff, and they're called Chu Hoi slips, and they're written in Viet Cong or Vietnamese or whatever, so they tell him, hey, you give up, and stuff like that. And he had a bunch of them and over his head, and he was Chu Hoi, and that means he wants to give up. And this went on, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes, and then the next thing I know, shots rang out, machine guns, and this guy must have, hell, he must have took, 300-400 rounds or something, they just emptied all of them, there's 15 or 20 of them there, and I witnessed it, I watched it, and after that time, I hated everything about the Army after that.
I just turned you, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I said, hey, man, I've seen enough,
Right. Yeah, so how did...
Talk to nobody after that.
Yeah. Was it so when you came home and people said, "Hey, you're in Vietnam," you just didn't talk? That's those are hard memories to carry alone. They are. Did they? How did you kind of get back to? What happened to you after you got back?
Well, I got married, and everything, and I had a daughter. She lives in Denver now, and my son, he lives in Butte, but he was married and living in Casper, Wyoming, but they got a divorce, and she's from Houston, Texas, and she took the kids and went to Houston, and then now he lives in Butte, But anyway, I was married for 23 years, and I tried to get help from the VA all the time. I went to when the VA hospital used to be in Miles City. Back when I'm talking about in 76, 75. And I moved to Helena first in '74 after my grandmother died. I moved to Helena and lived there, and we was married there, me and my ex-wife. And she went to nursing school there and stuff. And then after we lived there till '75, and then in '76. She had my daughter, and then we moved to Billings here in '76, and I've been living in Billings ever since. But I tried to go to. I went to Miles City, and I told them, I said, hey man, me and my wife's not getting along. I'm drinking too much, because that I didn't know it at the time. Back then, post-traumatic stress didn't mean nothing to me. I mean, I heard the term, but I didn't. I had no idea I even had it. And. So I told him, I said, hey, man, I can't, I'm having trouble sleeping at night, and me and my wife aren't getting along, and I need to talk to somebody. And they handed me a big jar of Valiums, and said, here, there's a number on on the side of the bottle, and when you run out of them, just go ahead and call that number and they'll send you some more, you know. And I said, well, hey, I didn't come here for pills, you know. I mean, I want some help, you know. I want somebody to talk to. You know, they just give me the old, I said, okay.
Shoulder shrug.
I left, and when I was walking down that hallway at the hospital there, you know, I got to the end and opened the door, and there's a big trash can right beside the door, and I just threw that bottle of pills in there, and I left, and I let it go, you know, for a lot of years. I didn't do nothing about it, you know, and I kind of feel bad for my wife about that, because she took all she could take, you know. And
Yeah.
finally divorced me in '89, so.
Yeah. Does that, so how have you gotten to the point where you can talk about it?
Well, I finally said, you know, I got cataracts, right? I think I was 58 or 59, and I went to a doctor here in town, a Dr. Miller over on Broadwater, and he has nothing to do with the VA. He's just a what do you call, ophthalmologist or whatever for eyes, you know. And so I went to him and I said, hey, doc, man, I can't see, you know. I got these rings like a halo around, you know, around my eyes, man. And he you know, took me in and checked me out, and he said, well, you got insurance? And I said, no, I can't afford any insurance. I don't have nothing. And he said, well, was you in the service? And I said, yeah, I was in Vietnam in '69 and '70, you know. And he goes, why don't you go to the VA? And I said, man, they won't do anything for me, you know. I've been trying to, you know, for 30-some years, and they won't open the door for me. And he said, well, by God, I'm going to write them a letter, and they will open the door for you. So he wrote a letter, you know, to him and said, that's shameful, man. You letting this guy, you know, go along here, and you won't do nothing for him? Why won't you do nothing for him? So he shamed him into doing it. So I went to Helena, you know, and got my, you know, he helped me out and made up the appointments and gave me eye drops and stuff, you know, that helped a little bit. And then I went to Helena, and I got surgery on my right eye, okay? I only had 10% vision in my right eye at this time. So they did surgery. I had to wait 6 months. Then they did the other eye. After they did that, I could see better, you know, my vision came back. And well, then a year after they did, a year after they did the first eye, 6 months later they did this eye, and then 6 months after that, the doctor that I was seeing down there, he was Bernard, I think his name was. He was a Navy doctor, you know. And anyway, he told me, he said, well, Doug, have you ever had a glaucoma test? And I said, no. And he said, well, is it okay if I give you one? You know, I said, sure, doc, man, whatever you think I need. So he gave me a glaucoma test, find out I had glaucoma, right?
Right.
You know, and then they started giving me eye drops and stuff, you know, and I'm still on them eye drops. And I take one drop, you know, one drop in each eye, and then I take, in the afternoon, I take a different drop, right, for each eye. And then at night before I go to bed, I got a different drop. So I got 3 different drops that I take, you know.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
the day.
Did you, looking back, now that you've had almost 50 years, 46. Looking back on it, how do you look at the Vietnam War now versus, you know, even then? How does a guy who was over there think about it?
Well, I don't know. What do you mean think about it?
Do you look back on it? Is it different? Does it seem different to you now than it did then?
No, I don't know. You know, I mean, it was just a war, and you know, and they were drafting people. You know, like I said back then, they were drafting everybody that wasn't going to college or you know, some kind of deferred, you know, something wrong with you or whatever. And
right.
I mean, you know, or if you was a senator's son or something, you know, and you didn't go, you know, but everybody else went, you know. And I mean, a lot of guys said to hell with that and burnt their draft cards and went to Canada or whatever, you know. And I got no disrespect for them. I mean, that was them, and they did what they, you know, thought was right. And I don't, you know, I don't look at it any way. If a guy went, then hey, good for him. If he didn't, you know, he did what he thought was right, you know. And that's, that's the way I look at it.
Did you ever go? You've never been back to Vietnam since then?
No, I'd like to though.
Would you? Why?
Hey, I'll tell you what, man. That country is a beautiful country. I thought it was a beautiful country even with the bomb craters. You know, I mean, really, honest.
Yeah.
And you know, I think about it all the time, and I think, God, you know, I wouldn't mind going there and just, you know, to see what it's like again after all these years. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, I remember the kids and the you know, the mothers and the young ladies and stuff, and man, they looked at us like we were heroes.
Yeah. So so the interaction you did have with kind of the average folk was pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What's the
See, we're so much bigger than them, you know.
Yeah.
They're like small and skinny and stuff, you know, and they'd look at us like, wow, an American, you know. I mean,
Right.
we were something to them, you know.
Right. When you one of the reasons that we're doing this project is to make sure that people don't forget about Vietnam. And in the future, that when they read about it, they can hear people from Montana who were there actually talk about it. What do you want people, not only today, but in the future, to remember about Vietnam?
Well, gee, I don't know. I mean, you know, a lot of people have different opinions about it and stuff, you know. But I look at it like, hey, man, it was just something that was happening at the time, just like Afghanistan and Iraq and everything that's going on now. This was back then, you know, and
Right.
and maybe we ought to look at it in Korea, you know, and stuff, and maybe we ought to just look at it like, hey, it was something that, you know, that we had to do, and people, it wasn't a popular war, but what did that have to do with me, you know, or any of the other people that went there and died fighting it, man? You know, we just did what we had to do.
Yep.
I feel baddest for the guys that got drafted and didn't want to go, you know.
Right.
I mean, it was you go to jail or you go.
Right. It's not much of a choice.
No.
Not much of a choice. I mean, I guess it is, but it's not really.
You know, but
Yeah.
me, see, I went because I wanted to go, you know, and I mean,
Right.
you know, but there was a lot of guys that didn't, you know, but they didn't have no choice, man. It was either that or go to prison, you know. And,
Yeah. Were you glad to be back after Vietnam?
oh, yes,
Yeah.
it really was, you know. I was, like I said, I didn't want to stay there or anything, but you know, I mean, if I could have, I would have signed up and volunteered for the draft and went to Vietnam the next day and spent my whole 2 years there and then come home.
Okay.
Because I didn't, you know, like I said, I wasn't looking forward or didn't even want to be in the service, you know. I didn't want nothing to do with it. I had no death wish or nothing like that. I just, you know, I just wanted to go, you know, to Vietnam and experience it, you know. And because, like I said, me and my grandpa would watch it on TV every night, you know. My dad died when I was 3 years old, see, so I lived with my grandparents on his farm and ranch, you know.
Right. Was he worried about you wanting to go to war? I mean,
No,
here's his
he was
grandson.
proud of me. He liked it. You know?
Okay.
In fact, he died and he never did know that I had a Bronze Star. You know, after this letter Dr. Miller wrote, you know, for me and got me in, got my foot in the door and everything. Then I was considered 10%, okay, disabled.
Okay.
And then from there, I got to talk to doctors and take tests and do this. And they said, the guy that I was working with, he said, you know, Doug, he said, I've been working with veterans for 18 years. And he said, I'd never seen anybody that had post-traumatic stress worse than you, you know, out of the 18 years that I've worked with veterans. And that's the first time I heard the term, you know. I said post-traumatic. I'd heard it, you know, but I never knew what it was.
Didn't think it applied to you, maybe?
Yeah, I didn't know it applied to me. You know, I don't know. I just, you know, I just never knew what it was until then. And then they you know, they gave me made me 70%, and then they said something about unemployable or something, you know, and gave me 100%. So I'm 100% now, you know. So anyway,
Right.
But
do you still struggle with PTSD?
oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that's one of the reasons why I really never tried to find another woman, because, see, that good woman I had.
Yeah. Yep. And that's one of the things that for PTSD that people, I think, have to understand, that it just doesn't, it's just not a momentary condition to get over either.
Well, it's not so much that, it's the people, your wife, your kids, it affects everybody, you know, it affects.
Yeah. So, you know, one of the questions I ask is, do you think Vietnam changed you? So the answer would have to be yes.
Yeah. But like, you know, like now, I lived by myself since '89, and I wanted to show you this here. I did. Okay. See, these are my two kids now. You know, they're my partners.
Your PT
service dogs.
Your service dog.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's
Joker.
Precious and Joker. Precious is a little rat terrier. She's like 5 pounds, and Joker's 6 pounds, and he's a Chihuahua.
Right. And tell me how that works. They help with.
Well, they're just they're like having kids. They're like my kids. I mean,
Right.
I spend all my time with them. I take them everywhere I go. I go to the grocery store. I go pick up the mail. Whatever I do, I go with them. The only time I don't take them is I'm supposed to be I've been waiting since April, but they're supposed to start me on physical therapy, and I got to do swim therapy because I need a new knee. They're supposed to replace my knee, but I told them I would like to try to physical therapy, swim therapy, because I can't, it's easier on the joints and everything. And if I can get my weight back down to where I should be, see, I'm like over 160 or 260 pounds, and I should be like 164 to 174, And I can't do anything physically because of my knees and arthritis and everything. So I want to try to get my weight down. Then maybe I won't have to have surgery on my knee, and get a replacement, So, but like I said, I got to fight for everything I get from the VA, So I don't know why that is, but.
Yeah, that's.
I hope before I die I find out why, because. Like I said, I know people that are in the same boat as me, but they have no problems. Everything they want or they get, they get and have no problems. But I seem to have problems with the VA every time I turn around. I gotta write to congressman, and I just wrote to Zinke. He wasn't much help, but.
Right.
I'm waiting to hear from a Tester. Helped me though. He helped get the door open and get me in there. John Tester.
Yep.
And what's his name? Bacchus. Bacchus helped me too. And now I'm waiting for Danes. I wrote a letter to him and explained to him what's going on and what they're doing. And I guess he got the letter, but I haven't heard no reply from him or nothing yet. So.
Right. What's the I'm sitting here. I'm listening. You said two things that are kind of interesting that I wanted to ask you about. You said that obviously, and I can tell PTSD affects you every day. And yet, what's interesting to me is you said, "Yeah, I'd go back. I'd go back and do it." That's pretty profound. That knowing what it did, you'd still be willing to do it. You'd still be willing to go back.
Because that's just because I think this country is so great, and. And I'd do it just for my kids, and my grandkids. I got a grandson and a granddaughter too. Like I said, they live in Houston, but they come down here, visit my ex-wife and me, every year about July, and spend a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, and then they fly back home to their mom. But I just think this is a great country, and if people don't stand up and fight when it comes time. What are we? Where are we?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things
freedom isn't free. I know you probably heard that too. But
yeah, but it's true.
Yeah.
It doesn't. There's a reason it's said.
Yeah.
One of the things that when I do this, when I interview anyone, it's probably foolish to think that I can take 2 years of experience and condense it into an hour or so. But what have I missed about your story, or what needs to be remembered about your story that I may not have touched on?
Well, I don't know. I just hope that you say something about the VA. The VA ought to do more for us veterans.
Yeah.
I can't understand why. Congress and everybody is doing this and that for other people, but they just don't. Just like the other night, I watched that debate on TV, and they didn't even mention the VA. They didn't mention the vets. They didn't mention nothing.
Yeah. Does it worry you? We're still making more veterans because we're still fighting wars. Does it worry you that what's going to happen to you is going to keep on happening?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying is, they got to do something for the veterans, man. Because half these people, these politicians, they never fought in any wars. They don't know nothing. There's a few of them, like, what's that guy from Boston, Kerry, Kerry, and the other guy from Arizona.
McCain?
McCain, yeah. There's a few of them that have, but, apparently, I don't know, they must have forgot, or I don't know if they're pushing, do something different, but somebody ought to, somebody ought to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, myself, I don't know if there's much more they can do for me, but there's a lot of us that ain't getting it. Hell, when there's 22 guys every day, veterans every day that are committing suicide, there's something really wrong,
Yeah.
There's something really wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, that's too many for anybody.
There shouldn't be one, really,
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And I'd like one thing, that I've always wondered about is, did they have 22 guys in Vietnam that, during the Vietnam War for them 10 years or whatever it went on? Did they have 22, or how many people committed suicide then as it's happening now? I mean, nobody seems to do any studies to find out what the hell's going on. Maybe there's something different about this war now, or what's going on that's causing these guys to do this. Maybe these guys are going over there and just killing people, and then they come back. It's too heavy of a load to carry,
Right.
Because like I said, I had respect, even though I hated them little bastards, because they were our enemy and we fought them. I still had respect for them. That's why when that happened that I told you about and they murdered that guy, that made me sick.
Right. Right, because you at least have to respect.
Kill this guy. He wanted to give up, and there was no reason to kill him.
Right. Well, and having in war, you do what you need to do, but having respect, you can still do those two things.
Yeah.
No, that's profound. Well, I want to say thanks for sharing your story, and I also want to say thank you for volunteering and doing that. It's a heavy load to carry, and I'm deeply appreciative of that. Thank you for hopefully telling your story, and other people hear that and say, yeah, I can tell my story. So I really appreciate it.
Well, also, maybe it'll help these younger vets. Maybe it'll help them get the help they need. I mean, these politicians ought to do some soul searching and think, wow, just like we said, freedom isn't free, man. I mean, guys and now there's no draft or nothing. Guys are just signing up and going over there and fighting, because, well, probably the same reason I did, I imagine,
Right. Yeah, well, and they're doing multiple tours too.
Yeah,
because because they have to, which is
well, like I told you, if they would have let me, I would have volunteered the day I signed and left the next day and went to Vietnam and spent 2 years there and then come home. I mean, that's the way I felt about it.
Yeah.
But they said, no, you can't do that, Kern. You got to be trained. You got to go through a first basic, and then you got to go to AIT, and then after that you'll go to Vietnam. Just to have some patience, And I said, okay, but I just didn't want to do the tin soldier thing. That's not what I wanted. But
yeah.
Sometimes you don't get what you want.
Yeah. I imagine that's true. Well, thank you so much, Doug. This has been Daryl Ehrlich and Douglas Kirn, who served in the Army from 1969 to 1971. Thanks for tuning in and listening.